to the program, everyone. It's been 58 years since Nigeria was plunged into one of the darkest chapters in its history, the Civil War, also known as the Biafran War, a conflict that lasted from 1967 to 1970. It claimed over 1 million lives, while some reports say 2 million lives were lost. That war deepened ethnic divides and left scars that many say the country is yet to fully heal from. As the nation marks this somber anniversary, we reflect not just on events of the past, but on the enduring impact on Nigeria's unity, politics, and identity today. What have we learned? What have we forgotten? And how do we pass on the truth to future generations? Joining us now to unpack these questions is Nkrumah Bankong-Obi, a journalist, poet, and author. He joins me virtually on Politics Tonight. Good evening to you and welcome to Politics Tonight. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening, viewers.
Right, so let's start this way. When you think about the Nigerian Civil War, what comes to mind?
What comes to mind quickly is that we have no memory, no sense of memory, no sense of remembrance as a country, that we have very scant regards for history. We have we pay very little attention to the things that really matter. I mean, the Nigerian Civil War is the greatest, is the biggest epoch you can think of in the history of this country. And it's only, I can only say only TVC remembers. Only your station remembers that yesterday, 6th of July, was exactly 59 years since this war started. And where did it start? Who and who were there? Outside of newspaper snippets, there's nothing to show that we remember anything, except occasionally somebody releases a memoir or a book or something, and then we go and clap and sing, and then we go home. Nothing happens. So it comes to me, what comes to my mind quickly is that we don't remember anything. If we say about 3 million people were killed, we don't remember where did it happen? Where were the major points of conflict? What happened? What was the cause of the conflict? We don't remember anything.
Right, so if you say we do not remember, Mr. Nkrumah, what exactly do you think we should remember as a nation? Because, I mean, 1967, I was not born yet, but history has a lot for us. And looking at it from your own perspective, 59 years later, what were the root causes of the Nigerian Civil War, and do they still exist today?
Absolutely. I will just begin by saying that those factors are still very much with us. Those things that resulted in the Civil War are still very much with us. We all remember all students of history remember. I wasn't born during, I was born 11 years after the war. But as a student of history, I had to go back because I love this country. I love my country. And I really wanted to know, and I still desire to know more. And let me tell you, if you remember the Western Nigeria crisis, political crisis that led even to the excision of the Midwest from Western Nigeria. You remember all the politics of what happened in the Western House of Assembly. If you remember the Tiv riots, you remember the census crisis, you remember all the unmanageable methods and the unpleasant method that politicians use to govern this country. Those things, have we dealt with them? Have we eradicated them? Have our politicians learned anything? I don't think so. Ethnic dichotomy, tribalism, language differences, they are still all present with us. So we have not learned. And if you look at some of these things, it was what prompted those young officers, those bright guys who went to military academies all around the world, who came back and refused to sit back and watch the politicians mess the country as they perceived. And then they took up the arms and said, no, enough is enough. So those things that I have mentioned, religious bigotry, tribalism, language differences, and inability to unite, to build a country, to couple a country into a complex whole that we can move from, we can transit from being a country into a nation. Those things are still very much with us. I don't need to name them, you know them, every Nigerian knows that those things are still very much present with us.
And it's important to talk about them, and I hope we have enough time for that. But, you know, having said all of this, Mr. Nkrumah, how has the Nigerian political landscape, been shaped by the outcomes of the Civil War? Do you think the no victor, no vanquished policy achieved that intended goal? Do you think the policy helped in healing the national psyche, or did it merely silence critical conversations about justice and accountability?
Did not. The No Victor Vanquished thing was just another slogan. You know, we're very good, we're very nice with sloganeering. It was just another slogan. Go to Garkem. We haven't talked about where this war started. Go to Garkem, where the first shot was fired. Go to Garkem, in fact, go to Oguja province. By this time, as we speak, in 1967, by this time, today is 7th, an evening of 7th. By this time, more than 50 people were already killed. More than 50, including the soldiers on both sides, including the civilians. They were both killed. We are not talking about that. We don't know. You are seeing the visuals you are showing now. That is the scene where the first shot was fired. That is the place where the war started. You hear all the agitators, you hear people say all sorts of things. They want this, they want that. Nobody is asking, when we celebrate the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, what are you celebrating? Can you celebrate an end of something without the beginning? Is it possible? No. This is where, this Garkem, this where you are seeing the visuals you're seeing. Garkem is now in the Kwara local government area of Cross River State. This is where it all began. This is where our own Armed Forces Remembrance Day should begin, should be held. Across the world, when I was researching my book, The First Shots, Ogoja province in the Nigerian Civil War trajectory, what I found in my research across, because I sent lots of emails across the world, what I found was that every country that has gone through what we have done, they have a sense of memory. All right. In Poland, I mean, remember the concentration camp, they have Auschwitz, where everybody goes to, where the tomb of the unknown soldier is. In the US, in Arlington, Virginia, where they have the scene of the Gettysburg War. Remember that famous address given by Thomas Paine?
Yes.
In that location, every person who wants to be a president of the United States must go to the scene of the Gettysburg War, where it all began. And even across here, if you go to where we have had these kinds of conflict, there are monuments, there are things there that show us that we remember. All right, but just see what you're seeing on your screen. Does it show you that there's anything there? These visuals were taken in
what you're saying directly, Mr. Nkrumah, is that there should be a day for us to celebrate this episode of our life as a nation.
Absolutely. Okay. I propose that we have a National Day of Handshake. And I'm sure that everyone who is listening to me can help appeal to Mr. President. Declare that place you are seeing, those visuals you're seeing on your screen, declare that place a National Heritage Site. It is the first and most important place. Declare the National Heritage Site. We will move on and have a National Day of Handshake. Replace with a National Day of Prayer. We can put a prayer alongside, but our unity begins from that spot. Remember also that the beacons separating the northern and the southern protectorates before 1914, they passed through that location you're saying. That is why the Biafran soldiers took positions there. And that small village called Garkem was under siege for more than 6 months. Because the war moved from there to other places, and then the Western cameras arrived and beamed it to the entire world. We quickly forget, we think that the war started elsewhere. No. In this place, there are people there who are born deformed. In this place, there are people there who suffered injuries. In this place, there are people whose economy was completely disfigured. All right? And these things we don't talk about. So if we must have peace, if we must reconcile, then we should go back to Garkem. Have, just like you have the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, let us also have a day of peaceful reconciliation, a day of national handshake. We should not. Abuja is the capital city, fantastic. But Abuja did not see these things. The blood of the first people who died in our war was not shed in Abuja. It was shed in Garkem. And I think it's only natural that justice should begin from that spot. That those who died, those who we can't even account for, they should be properly reburied in that place. Those who shed their blood, who also left some sweat there. And I'm talking about people like General Muhammad Shua, then he was a lieutenant colonel. I'm talking about people like Major Martin Ademu. I'm talking about people like General Gadam Nasco. I'm talking about people like Abdullah Sheleng. I'm talking about somebody like Anthony Halania. All of these guys, including the immediate past president of Nigeria, General Muhammadu Buhari, he was in Garkem, he was captain. So if we have all of these people, some of them still alive, we can bring them to this place and recreate history, recreate memory, and institutionalize our sense of remembrance. That will help to heal. If not, everything else we sit to do in Abuja, in Parliament, it's just cosmetic. Just like your victor no vanquished was cosmetic,
Yes.
because it didn't heal in that
And
location
also,
where this thing started.
and also, Mr. Nkuruba, I mean, for those who say Nigeria missed an opportunity for a more robust truth and reconciliation process after the war, would you consider that one of the many factors? And I ask because, you know, most countries emerge from wars with the bitter lessons learned to build a stronger, more united and prosperous future. A typical example is that after the genocide of 1994, which claimed over 1 million people, Rwanda, under a visionary leader, Paul Kagame, stopped hating and embraced forgiveness. For us as a country, as Nigeria truly healed from the ethnic and religious regional divisions that fueled that war?
Did we even do anything? Did we? Who is happy? Who is happy? If people 59 years after, people are still agitating, it tells you that something was definitely wrong. You are talking about Rwanda. Rwanda happened in 1993, for something years after the Nigerian Civil War, right? I've given you examples from across the world, all right? Even near us, Algeria here, let us learn what happened. Let us learn how these people who did it, the older people who suffered this kind of scenario, who had this kind of event, let us learn what they did. What did they do? They brought their people together. How did they bring them together? Back to where it all began. And they were sincere. You did not leave out one part because this one is a minority area, so you leave it out. Okay, let me please this person here, and you go there and do a few things and move on. No, you don't make peace that way. You don't make peace without restitution. You don't make peace without apology. You don't make peace ultimately without remembrance. We're talking about Rwanda because Rwanda has a sense of remembrance. Because if you go to the Genocide Museum, what you are seeing is just, and then you have a place where those genocidaires, and you have those who are sentenced by the Gacaca courts, where they are. People know that these are the people who perpetrated this evil, but we can no longer harm them because we have forgiven them. But they are there to remind us so that we can say, never again. But in Nigeria, can we say never again? No, no, because we hear these things. Look at Boko Haram. Look at the agitations in the Southeast. Look at what is happening with many youths in the bushes, picking people up and doing all sorts of dangerous things to them. We have not learned, because if we learned, we would have moved on from the state of that anarchy that we plunged ourselves into, would have moved on to an organized state where we'll be looking at ourselves as an organic whole, as a country that is serious about holding itself. Let me assume that those who led us at the time were young, some of them in their 30s and 20s. But those who have come afterwards, what have we done? We're just contented with people every day releasing memoirs, and then the newspapers and the television stations.
Because, you know, my next line of question would have been whether or not the Nigerian government has done enough in terms of reconciliation with the people of the Southeast since the war ended. And I mean, what specific policy or symbolic gesture beyond recognizing the place where the first shot happened do you think is still lacking? But let's go to, I mean, these agitations. The movements like IPOB really reflect genuine grievances or misguided anger? And do you think the federal government is addressing the root causes or just the symptoms?
If you just talk about the Southeast as a geopolitical zone, then you'll be completely wrong and you get me out of this conversation, because the war didn't just happen in the Southeast. The war took place in the entire Eastern region. And the Eastern region at that time comprised of all the states in what is now South, South, and Southeast. And let me tell you, whether anybody likes it or not, the minority people were worst hit by that war. It was fought by the minorities, all right? They were worst hit because all of the events that happened in the minority areas were not reported. They were not. So if the federal government is interested in solving the problem of this war and bringing total reconciliation, there should be no picking out and picking in. It should be whole, it should be total of the people of Nigeria, all right? So what do? Bring minority, majority, Southeast, South, South, Southwest, Northeast, Northwest, everybody comes together. I mentioned General Shua, who led the first area command that went to Abuja and where the police action took place and then resulted into the war. I mentioned he's from Maiduguri. He's from Kalibalge in Borno State now. All right, and many others who were from other places. All right, so we must remember, and that's why someone like General Alabi Sama called his book "The Tragedy of Victory," and he was the only person, the only account that I've read that comes so close to talking about the minority areas. He's the only one. All others have glorified themselves and said all the beautiful things that they did in the course of the war, their gallantry and all that, which does not add up. So I'm saying that please help me amplify this. Bring everybody together, majority, minority, must be together because the war didn't happen in the Southeast. In the Southeast, it is loud because the Igbos are in the majority. IPOP has a loudspeaker that shouts. I could have been in the trenches. My father was an 18-year-old boy in the police during the war, and I know what he suffered. I'm a minority man. I know people from my area and areas like Gakem, Ogoja, Abi, and all those people who were conscripted without their knowledge and just taken somewhere and put in the army and they never returned. Is it because that location is a small place and cannot make any trouble that would anything that would trouble the government? No. It shouldn't be. Peace is not regarded like that. Peace is not made in that way. Peace is made in a manner that even if it is not total satisfaction, everybody has a sense of belonging. So Southeast, IPOP, and all of those organizations, I expect, let me even throw it as a challenge, and I know what this will bring me. I expect that IPOP should go to a place called Ahiara, where the longest speech was given by General Ojukwu, and let us see what's happening there in terms of memory.
All right, then. Because, I'm just wondering, Mr. Nkrumah, because, as part of efforts from the government to ameliorate developmental deficiencies in all of these regions, the president signed the bill creating regional agencies. Don't you think this is a good start?
No, whether there was a war or not, that could have happened. But it's a fantastic thing that the president wants to cascade, he wants to bring development to the grassroots, to everybody. It's a fantastic thing. But whether or not the war happened, this would still have been the nicest thing to do, to be sure that everybody has a sense of belonging. But I'm saying that settling an old-time dispute is different. And that's why I'm saying to everybody who hears this, and I'll propose that, Mr. President, please, I beg you, write your name in gold as a peacemaker that you are. Declare Oshara Hill, Garkam, a national heritage site, and make a speech there, ending the war. Let us shake hands. Let everybody shake hands across the Niger and say, indeed, we are brothers. Indeed, we are sisters. Indeed, we are Nigerians. All right? So the development commissions are fantastic. They're everywhere. Everybody's, I've been seeing people getting sworn in and all that. But as the ordinary people who still feel the hurt of the war, who still feel the impact, who still have the memory fresh, do they really feel that these interventions will ameliorate what they suffered? I don't think so.
Of course, Mr. Nkrumah, what do young Nigerians today understand or misunderstand about the Civil War? And do you think, are we doing enough to teach the younger generations about the danger of ethnic tension and political exclusion?
No, we are not. We are not. First, let me say what everybody says, that we have taken history from the syllabus, from the curriculum. Nobody teaches history anymore. I have had to study history myself, and I had to get people to teach me history on my own. So our young people are not even aware. And it's like when you now meet, such as what Boko Haram is doing, someone who brainwashes you with the poor knowledge that he has about something. That's what you get. So in some parts of the country, there are people who have very little knowledge or biased knowledge, and they just dish it out. I tell you, let me give you an instance. I'm from the Ogoja area, and I speak to people from some parts of the country who tell you Ogoja were traitors because they let the Nigerian soldiers in to attack the other parts of the eastern region. That's bias. That's not right. It's not correct. And that's why you don't hear about Ogoja province. You don't hear about how Ogoja people contributed to the unity of this country. So we must begin to teach history and teach it holistically and honestly too. All right, we must make deliberate attempts to educate our young people, to eschew not just violence, but to know that violence has consequences. Today, as I mentioned, nobody even can say how many people were killed in the war. We're a country of no statistics.
You know, I asked that question because I'm sure you know many young people speak casually about secession and war online. And clearly, from experience, this reflects a dangerous ignorance of the Civil War's reality. But for you, what do you consider as the dangers of romanticizing or trivializing war?
The biggest danger I think there is ignorance. It's ignorance, because it is ignorance that leads to misconception. It's ignorance that opens our ears to getting false information, false knowledge, false ideas, ideas that are toxic and destructive. That is it. If we were open to ourselves, if we were ready to bring ourselves together, first, as I said, put history back to the curriculum. Let people know. Those who want to accept it will accept. As Shrinka said, we must accept our history, whether we like it or not, because if we don't accept it, we will continue to make mistakes. So let us begin to teach our young people history. Let us begin to tell them the truth. Let us begin to write books that inform them about what was, what is, and what might possibly be if they do otherwise. So the online bantering and the online agitations and even the physical movements for separation, for all that, let me be honest with you, I believe that we are better together, but in being better together, we have to give ourselves a sense of belonging. I have to feel that, yes, I belong in this country. I have to feel that my friends in KB belong in this country. I have to feel that my friends from Ijesha belong in this country. We must give ourselves that sense of belonging. Where that sense of belonging does not exist, and it is not in the physical infrastructure, it is in the self-respect, it's in the interpersonal relationships, it is in the safety of each and every one of us wherever you go. One of those things, citizenship. One of those things, ownership of property. One of those things, the communal sense that we do not allow other externalities like religion to put a wedge between us. That will begin to sink in, to provide a means for us to accept that, yes, because we are one, you can't harm yourself or a part of you or anyone who is close to you unless you bring people together and find a way to glue them together and give them a sense of belonging and give them a sense of purpose that, yeah, this is our nation. We must grow it together, not the sense of this is my own space. Everything that is here belongs to me in terms of opportunities available and all that.
As a way of wrapping up, Mr. Nkuruna, what responsibility do young Nigerians have in preserving national unity?
They must get involved. Young Nigerians must get involved. And get involved in what? Get involved in the political process. Get involved in genuine ways that can lead to reconciliation. Get involved in seeing their country as their country, regardless of the sordid history that they have had, of what their forefathers, their ancestors, their grandfathers passed through. They must begin to see this country as a piece of their own inheritance. And those who are older, the older generation, should please provide a means for this kind of participation. For example, if I live where I am now and go to Jigawa, and I have been there to the period that the law allows me and I want to seek elective office, I should do it without any hindrance. If somebody from Yobe moves to Ogoja and wants to stay there and has been there for a while, and he wants to seek an elective office, he should be able to do that without any hindrance.
All right, then.
If we don't look at these parameters and look at this means of integrating ourselves truthfully, honestly, we will keep talking about we're doing this, we're doing that, and at the end, we are really doing nothing, just as the three arrows did not achieve anything.
I mean, 59 years after, we're still having this conversation, and we will continue to have it because truly the past may be behind us, but the responsibility to learn from it belongs to all of us, especially the youth who will shape Nigeria's future. Thank you so much for speaking with us, Mr. Nkrumah Bankong-Obi, a journalist, poet, author. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And let's take a break, and when we return, we'll move on to our next conversation. Please stay with us, everyone.